Hi everyone. For this lesson we'll take a look at congruent figures. Congruent figures have the same shape and size, and we know that we use this symbol here to represent two congruent figures. And if two figures are congruent, then you can flip the two figures, you can slide them, or you can turn them around and they'll still be congruent, right? So flipping is the same thing as reflection, and sliding is the same thing as a translation, and turning it is the same thing as a rotation. So this means that if you have two congruent polygons, then their corresponding parts are also congruent. So we can put this congruent symbol in front of it. And also, when you name the congruent polygons, you do so by listing the corresponding vertices in the same order. Okay? Alright, let's take a look at this one here. We have triangle ABC, and that's congruent to triangle EFG. So therefore we have to match up the corresponding vertices. So we can say that angle A is congruent to angle E, and angle B is congruent to angle F, and angle C is congruent to angle G. And also, since these two triangles are congruent, then we know that their corresponding sides are also congruent. So segment AB is congruent to segment EF, and segment BC is congruent to segment FG. And the last one here, segment AC is congruent to segment EG. Alright, let's take a look at this scenario here. We have two triangles, triangle ABC and triangle EFG. Now, if you know that two of the angles of this triangle ABC are congruent to these two angles of this triangle, then you can say something about the third angle. So angle C and angle G. And that is that the two angles are also congruent, and that's because of the third angles theorem. So now we can write angle C is congruent to angle G, since we know that angle A is congruent to angle E and angle B is congruent to angle F. Alright, let's take a look at this example. We have this diagram here. And from this diagram, we know that segment AB is congruent to segment EF, and BM is congruent to FM, and AM is congruent to EM. And we know that angle A is congruent to angle E, and angle B is congruent to angle F. So is this enough to compare these two triangles, triangle ABM and triangle EFM? I'll give you a couple of seconds just to think about this. Now, you might have noticed that these two angles, this one and this one here, are vertical angles. So therefore, you have enough information to verify or to check that triangle ABM is actually congruent to triangle EFM. And that's because all of the angles are congruent and all of the sides are congruent between the two triangles. So now we can erase this question mark and put the congruent symbol in between, which will finalize this statement here saying that triangle ABM is congruent to triangle EFM. Okay everyone, so this wraps up the lesson on congruent figures, and yes, we're still happy.